Day One Careers, myself, and then once Gigi joins, we're gonna get cracking with everyone's questions. So my name is Yevgeny. I am one of the co-founders of Day One Careers. So I started um, ages ago, while I was. Oh, yeah, actually, maybe let me talk to you about my background a little bit. So I used to work for Amazon for just over 3 years as a category lead and a marketing lead, and I was, as many Amazonians are, and as many hiring managers are, a prolific interviewer. And at some point in time, I started realizing that some folks would come with amazing profiles and great resumes, but because they were unprepared for behavioral interviews at Amazon, which are very peculiar, as folks who have ever interviewed with Amazon know, they ended up not progressing too far in the Amazon interview process. So I started coaching on the side a little bit, and then once I realized that most of the coaching um, topics keep on repeating themselves, I decided to create some educational content and started Day One Careers as a side gig on top of finishing up with my work at Amazon. And then I ran it on the side while I was at Apple. And then at some point in time, I met Gigi, who started the Amazon Interview Wiz Academy slightly earlier than me, but her motivations were exactly the same as someone who used to bar race for Amazon. She saw a very specific difference between candidates who were coached either by themselves or who collaborated with educational startups like ours, in terms of how they performed in the behavioral interview, in terms of their level of preparedness, their comfort level, and how in the zone were they during the interview. And so she created the Amazon Interview Wiz Academy with exactly the same ambitions as I did. And at some point in time, we merged, and the rest is history. So you are in really good hands, I'm going to say. So let me first talk to you about how we're going to run this show. So um, we are here to answer any questions that you guys have about Amazon's behavioral interviews. Now, when I say behavioral interviews, what I mean is obviously Amazon has thousands of different job families and groups, and the functional assessments for all of these different groups, they are completely different, and that's why we're not experts in any one of them. So if you do ask us something along the lines of what functional interview questions should I expect for some sort of construction manager for one of the data centers within AWS, unfortunately, we won't be able to help you. On the other hand, if you ask us a question, hey, folks, I have an interview with Amazon tomorrow. Any tips? Well, yes, we do have tips. The entire YouTube channel worth of tips, general tips for Amazon interviews. So feel free to just go and explore that. So for today's session, I recommend that you ask us questions related to behavioral interviews at Amazon, and any of the hygiene questions that precede them. And if you keep your questions to this topic, then we will be able to answer. Now, how do you ask your questions? So there's a little question bar, little comment bar to this live stream. You will see it. And whenever you have a question, just type it in. We would recommend that you try to keep your question just to the one sort of bar, because I think there's a character limit there. But in case you do have a long question, just split it into multiple parts. And just like you would publish a Twitter thread, just give us part one, part two, or 1/2/ so that we could then scroll down in StreamYard here and locate the different parts of your question. Now I can see that Gigi is joining us. So Gigi, welcome. I've just given everyone an intro into Day One Careers, how you and I discovered each other, yada, yada, yada. So essentially,
You've
we
done it
are
all.
ready to roll.
We're good to go. That's cool. Awesome.
Excellent.
Apologies, I'm late. I was just with a candidate. So
Fantastic. All right, folks. So keep those questions coming. We're going to bring them on the screen here. And let's get a couple of those in. So So here's a question here from Akash. Thank you for the time, guys. Can you please share some tips on clearing Amazon Program Manager phone interview? So Akash, and Gigi, I'm going to take this one just to give you kind of the opportunity to scan down and see what
Sure.
other questions there are. So Akash, there isn't any specific advice that I can give you that will relate to clearing the phone interview for this particular role. I'm going to say that for most of the non-technical roles like this one, the same advice that we give to everyone will probably work, and that is phone interviews, hiring manager interviews at Amazon. They tend to be kind of like anything goes scenarios where the building blocks of the interview are still they're not entirely random. So what they can throw at you during that phone interview, and these are the classics, is something along the lines of why do you want to work at Amazon, why do you want to work at this team, why now in your career. They can also ask you to walk them through your resume and tell them their professional story, how you ended up where you ended up. And they can also ask you something that is sort of in between walk me through your resume and why Amazon. And that's a question that's called tell me about yourself, where you have to effectively build some bridges between what they're looking for in the job description and what your professional profile is coming with. You should also be prepared to respond to behavioral interview questions. And if you want to know what leadership principles they're likely to ask you about, your recruiter is your best point of contact. In some cases, they will tell you. In some cases, they won't. So I think that's kind of it from me responding to this question. Gigi, anything to add?
Nope, nothing to add. Nothing to add. So,
Excellent. I'm gonna pass it on to you then.
sure, I'm
The
going to
next
pick
one.
this one. So, okay, I'm going to go for Mataza. I apologize if I've mispronounced your name. Please apologize to your parents for me if I have. The question is, can I answer why AWS with why Amazon, or does it have to be focused on AWS? Okay, so I interpret this question a little bit differently when certainly when I'm asked it and when I don't actually even ask that question when I ask candidates because I ask it more specifically because actually when they're asking you why this, be it why Amazon, be it why AWS, be it why this program manager role, be it why Amazon Music, whatever type of why they're asking you, the truth is they want to know, why do you think you're the right fit for this role, and why is this role the right fit for you? So I would actually say neither of those, rather, that you should answer the question in such a way that you articulate why you feel that you have a lot of value to add to the particular role that you're applying for, and why that particular role that you're applying for appeals to you. Lots of people only do the latter and talk about why they want to work at Amazon and how wonderful Amazon is and how much it will advance their career and how much they'll learn and blah, blah, blah. Yes, they certainly want an element of that, but actually they're much more interested in what you have to offer them than what they have to offer you. So if someone asks you why AWS, if you're applying for AWS, then I certainly wouldn't talk about why Amazon, because that takes you even further away from the reality of the role that you are trying to convince them that you are a good fit for. I would suggest you actually answer that in the context of the role that you're applying for. So talk about what you could potentially contribute to AWS in the context of the role in which you're applying for. Yevgeny, would you have anything else to add?
No, not at all. I think for this particular context, I would have responded the same. Thank you, Gigi.
You pick the
So
next one.
what's that?
Did you want to pick the next one?
Yeah, yeah. So I'm gonna pick this one. So this one is from uh, Sahasra. Sahasra. Apologies for butchering your name. My name gets butchered quite a lot, so I know how it feels.
I think I still butcher it, and I'm a business partner, and we speak every day.
No, she doesn't. She's not that kind of person. Anyway, so the question is, could you talk a little bit about invent and simplify versus insist on the highest standards, as they sound similar. It's a very interesting question because, do you know what, Gigi? You and I discuss leadership principles and which ones are similar, which ones are isn't. And sometimes, we do kind of get these exchanges, but I've never actually felt that invent and simplify and insist on the highest standards are similar. I sometimes confuse, not confuse, but see the overlap or a perceived overlap between invent and simplify and think big in some questions sometimes, but not with insistent high standards. So, no problem. I'll kind of give you my take on it. So, invent and simplify is really about being innovative and finding simpler ways to do things. That's essentially what's in the essence. The behaviors themselves, they encourage employees to reduce complexity and invent new solutions that haven't been thought of before. All right. So I don't know if you've heard this expression, thinking outside the box, but essentially, this is what invent and simplify is all about. On the other hand, insist on the high standards is about maintaining and raising the bar of excellence, and that bar obviously needs to come from you as someone who recognizes and goes through life and sees opportunities to raise the bar and raise the standards. So it's about not settling for something that is just not good enough, and uh, you know and I guess to continually raise the bar, not just for yourself but the folks around you, your team, whether the team reports into you, whether it's just folks around you. So I can see how you could probably spot that the two principles are, they're both about improvement, and
Mhm.
there's an element of excellence there. So for sure, so that thing is there. But invent and simplify is kind of more focusing on the innovation and simplicity, whereas insist on high standards is more about the quality and the high standards. If that makes any sense. I don't know, Gigi, if I'm sure you have a take on this as well.
I have that was perfect. I won't add to it in any way because I think I might even confuse it further. That's perfect. That's
No,
exactly the
that's
difference between
fantastic.
the two.
But Gigi, do you want me to tell you a little secret about this response that I've just landed?
Go on then.
So the secret is that I've just read this response from a response that was given by the Day One Careers AI chatbot, which we call the AIW Amazon Interview with AI Companion, which we've launched literally yesterday night. And this is the kind of stuff that it does, right? Not that I don't particularly believe that it would have given you better answer that any one of us humans would do, but this is a chatbot that we've just launched in our community, which is trained on all of the content that we've published on our YouTube channel, on our paid courses, and its job is to answer questions like that. It won't write stories for you. It's not going to review job descriptions for you. It won't do any of that other stuff, but it will answer questions like these. And this bot, anyone who owns Amazon Interview with Complete and Ultimate gets free access to this bot. And you just basically have a study companion with you as you prepare for your interviews. I'm very excited about this because we've put a lot of effort into it. And I just wanted to test drive this bot on an
Cool.
actual question here. So that's it. There you go, guys. Now you know it.
Honestly, I did not know that that's where Yevgeny got the answer from. That wasn't planted in me going, oh, that's the perfect answer. Oh, ho, ho. Promise, I didn't
Anyway,
know.
I'll
Cool.
hand it over to the real human being
Exciting.
here.
That's exciting. Right. So let's just, okay, so we're going to pop this one back in. Okay. So I'm going to pick up, there's two questions here from Brian. They're connected. So, which is the best technique to associate to a question the right LP implicit? Okay, I think I know where this is going, right? For me, thinking about which example I should use at the same time, I'm writing the answer and also figure out the right LP is a mess. Ideas to figure out the LP. All right, so yes, actually, I'm just going to pop you back in so that Yevgeny's body shows. So, you don't figure out the right LP. What you do is you understand the leadership principles in your preparation process. You understand the different what we call facets. That's a kind of a day one terminology, but each leadership principle has multiple facets. Customer obsession, which, by the way, we will give you access to at the end, a free course about this. Customer obsession has kind of four different facets to it. One is coaching your customer, one is championing your customer, one is anticipating your customer, and the other one is challenging your customer, I think. And understanding those facets, leads you to pick examples from your past. So if I understand that there are these four different facets associated with customer obsession, I want to pick examples from my past, that either four different examples that show me demonstrating each of those individual facets, or maybe one or two examples that show a combination of those facets. So I know that I've got the different facets of customer obsession captured in different examples. So when the questions then come along, the questions naturally derive from the facets, because the questions derive from the leadership principle and facets derive from the leadership principle. So they all kind of come together in this kind of triangle, virtuous triangle thing. The questions will inevitably have, or you will inevitably have, an appropriate answer for that question in your mental Rolodex, because you've prepared answers for those facets. So then all you have to do is answer the question, because you'll already have prepared an example in your head that will answer almost any question that you could be asked about the leadership principle. So at that point, your task is not to work out what leadership principle they're asking you. Your task is to remember the example that you have already prepared that will be inevitably aligned to the question, and focus on answering the question. It's that simple and that complex all at the same time. Does that make sense, Evgeny?
Yeah, no, it does. It did make sense. The only thing I'd add is, obviously, once you've done all this prep in real life, when you go into the interview, you might find yourself needing to just slightly maybe adjust the focus of that question, because the same facet can be tested by different questions. But if you've prepared the way that we recommend, that the amount of that slight in situ fine tuning will be highly limited, and you'll feel totally comfortable doing it, especially if you practiced with partners, with us, with anyone else. So
But the
that's
my overriding point here is just answer the question. If
yeah,
you
just
really
answer the
pay
question
attention to
exactly.
the question, answer the question. Your interviewer's job is to pull out the right data for you on a leadership principle. So you're not on your own here. If you're not quite headed in the right direction, your interviewer's job is to ask you specific follow-up questions in order to get the right leadership principle data from you. So with a combination of you answering the question and then pulling out the follow-up information, you should be in a position where the data for that particular leadership principle is brought out.
Indeed. Okay, let's move on to the next one. So this one is more of an kind of inside Amazon logistics question. Do you need an all yes to pass the loop? And so the answer is no. You just need the yes from the hiring manager and the bar raiser. But in order to get to that yes, it doesn't mean that it's okay for you to just do really well in your bar raiser round and your hiring manager round, and not do well in the rest of the rounds. Because guess what? Amazon does not make interview hiring. It does not make candidate hiring decisions on the spot. There is a debrief after everyone's had a chance to speak with you. And during that debrief, everyone is discussing the evidence that they've managed to unearth from your interview responses. And people do change their mind. And that's why we do recommend that you forget about trying to pinpoint any specific interviewer as part of your loop or panel, and you focus on consistently delivering a stable and high interview performance, because folks will be discussing, and you want those discussions to go in the right direction. Anything you'd add,
No,
TG?
absolutely fine. Perfect. I
Cool.
realize that's a bit bright here, actually. I might just turn down the light. So give me 2 seconds. Do you want to pick the next question?
Yeah,
And I'll
yeah,
just turn
I can
down
pick.
the light in my
No
office.
problem.
I'm getting
Let's
bright.
keep going. All right. So there's another question here from Sahasra, and the question is also questions to ask interviewers at the end. I feel like I'm stalling for time in that situation. Well, look, I again, I don't know what sort of level of preparation you've put into thinking about what questions you should ask at the end of the interview, but it's definitely something that you should have ready, right? There's no need for you to keep asking different questions to different interviewers if you just want to collect diverse perspectives on the same set of questions. So there is no sort of wrong way of doing it. There is definitely a wrong way of not prepping and coming up with no questions prepared for Amazon, that's for sure. But even if you have time to just ask one question, so just pick one question from whatever questions you've prepared and ask it. Now, if your question is, well, what are the what are the good sort of types of questions to ask? Well, we the good ones are the genuine ones, and the ones that demonstrate that you're taking this seriously, because it's you're gonna spend most of your life at work, right? Surprise, surprise. That's just sometimes it's kind of daunting to think this way, and Amazon is definitely for not for everyone. It's an excellent organization to work for, but just like all organizations, it's not for everyone. So if I were you, and I was you at some point in time, I definitely ask all the questions that are on my mind. Yeah, and I don't know what questions you have in your mind. You must have some, right? It's employment. It's important. I don't know, Gigi. Or do you have any kind of more detailed advice on this one?
Well, we do have a video on the YouTube channel that makes recommendations as to what questions you could potentially ask, and it breaks it down in terms of asking the hiring manager, asking a peer, and asking someone that's not in your team at all. So if you are short on questions, then go check out that particular video because it's got a full list that you can use there. But I think more broadly, I agree with Evgeny in terms of just got to ask the questions that you want to hear the answers to. An important point is, in theory anyway, the questions that you ask at the end of an Amazon interview are not meant to be used as data to assess you as to whether you're bar raising or not. And I think a lot of people approach question time as if it's another opportunity to wow or impress their interviewer, and they don't ask the questions that they really genuinely want the answers to. So I would suggest to people, as Yevgeny has, ask the questions that you really want the answers to that will help you decide if that's the job that you want to take and that's the manager that you want to work with and that's the company that you want to work for, because those are your only opportunities really to find out that information. Okay, shall I pick the next one? Because this is an
Please.
interesting discussion that we can kind of have slightly one-sidedly. I apologize because Brian can't talk back to us. But so, Brian, I have figured out that people usually last 5 years at Amazon. Is there a reason for not keeping growing in the company? A is so cool as it seems to be. I'm going to cover this piece first, and then I'm going to pick up the second point that Brian's made in his second submission. So, the first thing to note is I have never seen a I won't say accurate, but I have never seen a study that really reveals what the average tenure is of an Amazonian, because it actually depends on how you choose to define average. How are you mathematically calculating the average? And what type of drivers are impacting that average? So if you have if the company has been been around a very short time, then you don't have a huge tail of population to drive your average in one direction or another. If your company is growing very, very fast and has recruited massively over the past couple of years versus prior years, that drives down the average. So you have to be pretty careful about any of these studies that you read about the average tenure of anyone at Amazon or indeed any other organization. The first thing I do when I read these studies is I go straight to the methodology to try and understand what methodology they've used so that I can get some level of confidence about what they're actually saying, which is often not what the headline suggests they're saying. That's the first thing. However, there is a 5 year drop off point that exists in Amazon. So I'm going to deal with that specifically, which is driven by the way that Amazon creates their offers when they take on a candidate in the first place, take on an employee. When you first join Amazon, they give you an offer that has a 4-year kind of breakdown in it. They don't just offer you a job at a certain salary. They'll say, year one, this is what your compensation looks like. And it's a combination of baseline salary, sign on bonus, and then RSU. Same for year two, same for year three, same for year four. And how that works is over the course of time, you start off with a larger proportion of salary and bonus versus RSUs. And then your RSUs kind of creep up and come into line with your salary and bonus, which disappears off. And you get more RSUs and less bonus. If the share price of the organization grows between year one and year four, you get the benefit of that growth in share price. When they calculate the RSUs they want to give you, they make an estimate as to what the share price is going to be in year two, year three, in year four, based on the current share price with an estimate of growth on top of it. What's happened historically with Amazon is that the share price growth has consistently outstripped the forecast that went into the calculations that were made when offers were laid down. So what was happening was, instead of people's compensation kind of evening out over the course of 4 years and staying relatively flat, because that's what they're looking for. They're looking for you to earn broadly the same amount of money year after year, just a different combination of RSUs and bonus and salary. What's happened traditionally, or historically, I should say, is actually people's compensation, overall compensation, has increased because the share price had kept going up beyond the forecast that they made when they initially gave you your offer. So what would happen is at the end of year four, people would be earning far more money than they, even though some of it's theoretical money because it's RSUs, than they had imagined they would earn. So come year five, when the new kind of 1 year rolling way of allocating your compensation happens, you see a massive drop, because what they do is they try and readjust you to their original target total compensation, which has been blown out of the water because of the rise in the share price. So historically, lots of people found themselves massively over earning compared to what their expectations were. And then the following year, finding themselves with an enormous drop off in salary. At that point, they then go, okay, I'm currently earning, albeit I shouldn't have been earning, X amount of money. If I stay next year, I'm actually going to be earning X minus 20%, X minus 30%. When I when I hit that peak, I was finding myself X minus 100% because I just got timing so lucky when I joined Amazon. And that becomes a point where people go, well, okay, do I want to stick around and do the same work and earn 20% less, 30%, 40% less? Or do I want to use all these skills and knowledge that I've earned from Amazon and go and get myself a step up and a promotion in another organization? So you are right to say that there is a drop off point at year five. That's the reason for the drop off point. It's not really got anything to do with Amazon per se. It's primarily driven by the market economics of the Amazon share price historically. Now, that's obviously going to have changed over the past year, 18 months, maybe even 2 years. But that is the kind of the historical narrative between the 4-year cliff, it's called. Okay, so now that was a long explanation. Was that, Yevgeny, do you think that was clear to people?
Yeah, it was very clear. The only point
Okay.
that I had to add is, imagine the value that Amazon would have added to your profile if, in order to escape the peaks, some folks would leave for a level of compensation that would have been more closer to what the overinflated level
There was, exactly. That's why
would have been for you.
they nip off and go and get promotions elsewhere and match their
Hmm.
over achieved salary. Okay, so then I just want to do this one. The second point kind of got me. So also I've seen that usually within the first year, many people change their role to a new one, so you can grow for sure. This I don't agree with at all. Amazon has quite a firm policy that promotions, anyway, they expect someone to be in post for a minimum of a year before they would really consider them for promotion. And equally, any hiring manager who hires somebody and then that person wants to go off and get another job somewhere else in a different team would be extremely unhappy because they've spent a lot of time and a lot of effort recruiting that person into that role, and they just had that wasted and they could have given it to somebody else. So I very, very rarely saw anybody changing roles within the first year. Now, there may be a pocket of the population, maybe very junior team members, who may demonstrate this behavior, and that may be the source of your kind of data point here. But at a macro level, Brian, I would suggest that that is absolutely not the case, unless, Yevgeny, is your experience counter to mine?
Nope, my experience is exactly the same. There's some folks that do change roles. It's a minority, some false starts, but it's definitely not a majority.
Okay, cool. Right. I think we've done that. Do you want to pick the next one?
Yeah, cool. Right. Let's see. Here's this one. Hi both. What can I expect in my first 45-minute interview with my Amazon recruiter? Will it be some why tell me questions plus some behavioral ones linked to LPs? Yeah. Basically that's I mean that's what it's going to be. It's similar to your what you might expect in your phone interviews with the hiring manager and if there's anyone from the team that would pick up any of these interviews. The only difference is that in the phone interviews with the actual hiring team, they might throw some functional assessments at you if they want to, right? If they're relevant to your particular role or some functional questions. But with regards to the recruiter, it's literally tell me about yourself, why Amazon, maybe an LP question, and that's it. Job done. Anything you'd add?
You might just get very typical, like talk me through a recent project that you've done or something like that. But I would consider the recruiter interview probably the closest to the more general, universal interviews you get in the world outside of Amazon. So, whatever your expectation is of a normal interview, that's probably what you'd face in an Amazon recruiter phone
Uh,
screen.
oh, compensation. They might ask you about your
Oh, yes,
compensation right
compensation
off
as
the bat.
well is another
That
one.
happens
Yeah.
as well.
Yeah, and yeah, those kind of side conversations about compensation, location, those types of things you'd get dealt with up front in the recruiter interview because you wouldn't be able to cover those off later on. Good point, Evgeny.
Cool.
Okay, right. So I'm going to pick this one. How do you think I should approach my layoff? You've been laid off for the past 6 months and you'd be interviewing for an IT manager role. Just tell them you've been laid off. There's nothing like you and everybody else, quite frankly. I don't know how many hundreds of thousands of people got laid off in the past 12 months or so. It's not unusual. It won't bother them in the slightest. So many layoffs were done at such a massive scale that everybody appreciates that there was amazing talent that got laid off because it was just a numbers game done by external consultants rather than people being laid off because of their performance. You can't lay off based on performance at the type of scale that happened for many of those organizations. So, you got laid off. It's as simple as that. And you can move on. If they were concerned that you'd been laid off, then, they probably wouldn't be interviewing you. So don't overthink it. Don't worry about it. You got laid off as part of a large organizational layoff along with many of your peers. End of story. Move on.
Hey, you got laid off. I was laid off when I was interviewing with Amazon. Got the job. It's all good. Don't worry about it. Right.
Okay.
Next one we've got. Do you recommend having your video on in a phone interview with an IT manager in case they turn their camera on that day? Um, To be honest, I think it's kind of up to you. I don't necessarily. I'll tell you what I would do, right? Because I don't think there's a universal response here. So, first of all, I would be prepared to have the camera on in case Amazon wants to have camera on during those initial interviews. So I would be ready. Yes, they call them phone interviews, which is a bit of an archaism. It's meant to be, audio only interview, but some of them will turn their camera on so I'd be prepared to do the same. Ask them, would you prefer the cameras to be on? You can say, hey, I noticed that you have a cam on, would you like me to turn mine as well? You can do that too. So that's how I would approach this situation. But I guess it's a bit flexible. Gigi, how would you approach this situation?
Um, I'd start with just establishing the expectation. So just check with your recruiter what the plan is. Is the plan to just do it audio, or is the plan to do it through VC? And then take it from there. And then, can always change the plan if sometimes interviewers say, I've got my camera turned off, it's not working properly, or you say, I've got my camera, whatever. Like don't overthink it. Check
Mm.
what the expectation is with the recruiter, and then be led by your interviewer. Okay, cool. Let's pick this one. I love this question. In
Oh
an
yes.
interview loop, could you discern who the BR is, and should your approach be any different towards them? You'll notice my emphasis on could and should as I
Yes.
read that.
Bring them the most expensive cognac that you can buy. That's
Right.
no, you don't do
So,
that.
could you discern who the BR is? You might be able to. So, the bar raiser is not meant to be anybody who works in the direct team that you're applying for. So it is possible, if you are given the job titles of all of the people that are going to be interviewing you, if one job title looks like it's totally not associated with the team that you are applying for, then you might be able to assume that they're the bar raiser. So, for example, I worked in Prime Video marketing function. I was a bar raiser. I was quite often asked to do, I was bar raising on loops for software development engineers in, I don't know, Audible. You can look at me and go quite clearly, I did not work in Audible, and therefore, let alone software development engineering, and therefore I was a probable good fix for the bar raiser. However, there are some roles, and let's go back to software development engineering, where the title of software development engineer can apply across any organization, and you could easily find someone who's a software development engineer for in AWS, and they might be in a completely different part of AWS, but they'll still have a job title of software development manager, let's say, in AWS, from the part of AWS that you're interviewing for, but simply the nature of the job title might mean that you can't tell that they're the bar raiser. So that then leads me to the should you approach them in any different way? Even assuming that you could tell who the bar raiser is, which maybe you can and maybe you can't, no, you should not approach them in any different way. You need to treat, you can look at it either way. Treat everybody on the loop as if they were the bar raiser, or treat everybody on the loop as if they were a normal interviewer. It's the same thing either way. Everybody talks about the evidence that has been gathered about you. Everybody reads what has been written by each interviewer, and everybody talks to each interviewer in a single conversation. So the decision will be made based on all of that information. The decision will not be made based on the bar raiser's particular interview with you. I, as a bar raiser, had some fabulous interviews with candidates, but when I sat in the room and talked to all of my colleagues and looked at the overall picture, I changed my mind about my view of that candidate. I've had the other side. I've had horrible interviews with candidates. And then when I've sat in a room with my colleagues and done the debrief and seen all of the fabulous evidence that came out from them, I've changed my mind because I'm making my decision based on the collective data. Bar raisers are trained to focus on the collective set of data and not just their own. And therefore, there is 0 point in performing really well in a bar raiser interview, but doing badly in all the other interviews, because you're not going to get hired, because it's about the overall. So just do your best in every single interview. Your bar raiser is looking for exactly the same thing as everybody else is looking for in your interviews. So do your best for everybody. Okay,
Nicely
do
done.
you want to pick the next
Cool.
one?
Yeah, I'll pick the next three because they're shorter and
Okay, cool.
the answers short. So these are all the same from James Z. So number one is it a better idea to split the loop across a few days or have it in one day? The answer is it really is up to you. Things to consider are so one of the candidates who studied with us, who ended up getting an L6 job, he decided that actually served them really well to split the loop across. He had it across 2 days because he prepared an entire matrix of his story bank where he had the story titles and the leadership principles that these stories map to. And as he was going through the days of his loop, he was ticking off which content, which stories he used for which leadership principles, so that he doesn't repeat those stories, and he focuses on the different contents that he had. So those types of considerations in terms of the energy levels. So it's really kind of down to you. It's very personal. I loved that my loop was all in one day because I just wanted to just get it done with and sleep better the next day. But hey, for some folks it works differently. So that's what I would say. And Gigi, after I answer all three of them, just jump in and let me know if you have any thoughts on any of them.
Will do.
Uh, are questions to ask the interviewer evaluative? So we've just answered this question. So no, they're not evaluative. As in they're not counted as evidence for or against your profile. It's more for you. Ask what you really want to ask. And then the third one is, should we approach the bar raise around a bit differently than the other? The answer is no. Gigi just answered it. Anything else you would add?
Nope.
That last question was a bit of a cop out.
Yeah.
For me.
Okay. Oh, okay. Sorry, I got excited. Alusoft. I'm always fascinated by how people come up with these names. What does Alusoft mean? What are you trying to express with that name? Anyway, moving on.
He's a software developer.
Yeah, for aluminium or aluminum. How do you say? We say aluminium. The US says aluminum. That's right, isn't it? Aluminium and aluminum.
Obviously,
Anyway,
we're right.
moving on. Well, you're Russian, so you can't even comment. You're just boring. Right. Hey, Alusoft. After 1 year of waiting because of the hiring freeze, you finally got an offer. Ah, that's awesome. Congratulations. We love it when people come on and tell us that they've managed to land their offers. And my God, you were patient. That's amazing news. That's so exciting. We have been getting messages from quite a few different candidates who unfortunately fell foul of the hiring freeze, which is pretty much 12 months ago now. So that's cool. It's amazing to see that these offers are actually now starting to come through. So congratulations, and we wish you a fantastic Amazon career. Awesome. Love that. Ooh, moving to Mexico. Who says he's moving to Mexico from Brazil?
Apparently
Very
so.
exotic. Very exotic.
For us.
Yeah, for me, yes. Anyway, living in stinky old London. Right, where were we? So we've got some more questions from James Z here.
But we've handled them. I think there's one from Brian
Oh, right, he's asking how you
Zuniga.
solve some questions. Okay, okay, okay. Let's pull that one up. Okay, I will be interviewed for a PM. The recruiter told me I will be answer with one question like, what will you do in a scenario hypothetically? I haven't found examples about advice, what they expect. Okay, right. Got it. So what you're talking about here, Brian, is functional questions. So I think Yevgeny mentioned earlier that teams kind of do things differently. Some teams will specifically ask functional questions to test your technical slash functional skills. Other teams will kind of gather that information by inference through your answers to behavioral questions. But it sounds like your team are very specifically looking to test your measure your skill in your functional space. How you answer it, dare I say, answer the question. They're going to, if they're asking you specifically, how would you do X in Y scenario, hypothetically, then you have two choices. You can either tell them hypothetically what you would do in scenario X, or, and probably preferably, and Yevgeny might jump in after I finish this, what you can do is if you have a specific example of when you actually dealt with scenario X, I would recommend that you actually say, well, funnily enough, something like that actually happened to me. And this is how I dealt with it. And what you're then essentially doing is turning a hypothetical question into a behavioral question, albeit a behavioral question that focuses on something that's functional and really happened. So, in an ideal world, see if you've actually got an example of when you did it in reality, and then they know that not only do you know the theory, but you're actually able to apply the theory, because that's one of the problems with hypothetical questions, is you're really only testing someone's theoretical knowledge. You're not really testing whether they're able to apply that theoretical knowledge in a real situation. If you can demonstrate that you both understand the theory and you are able to apply it, that's even better. Evgeny, would you add anything to that?
Nope. That's the strategy.
Okay, cool. Do you want to pick the next one?
Yeah, let's do it. Cool. So there's more from James, and here is a question around what experience counts slash being considered as experience to fit the minimum requirement for a role. So he applied for a program manager role, L5 with minimum 3 years of experience, and senior program manager L6 with minimum 5 years of experience. Yet you have 3.5 years of experience. Um, Look, I have never ever come across any specific guideline that would unify how Amazon would treat uh, internship experience and how valuable would it be and whether it would count towards the years of experience. In fact, for some roles, actually, they no longer even specify the years of experience because in some the trend is to actually um, despec the role from years of experience rather than concretely describe what sort of experience they're looking for. But
Fun fact. Fun
yeah,
fact. Um, the reason why that's done, at least certainly in UK and Europe, is because of age discrimination legislation. There
correct,
is an inference by putting in years of experience that you are effectively discriminating by age. So, yes,
correct, correct.
it's
It's
removed in a lot of job descriptions now.
That is true. But in terms of whether your internship years will be valued the same as the post internship years of experience, I would imagine this is down to the hiring manager. I would happily review a profile where you someone like yourself would have had a relevant internship, and if the content of your resume that outlines what you have actually accomplished and what skills you've applied to accomplish the results during your internship. If it's something that actually I want to take a risk at or take a bet at, then I would definitely invite you to your phone screen. And if I don't, then I don't. I think that's kind of how it is. I don't know, Gigi, if you've been aware of
No,
anything kind of institutionalized
nope,
on this.
no data on that.
Nope. Okay. Do you want to pick the next one?
Okay, I'm going to pick this one from Lorenzo. And Lorenzo, I recognize your name. I think we're going to be meeting later on this week, maybe next week. So nice to see you here, Lorenzo. And you like my sweater? Oh, thank you. So it's freezing in my house now. I have to be honest, everyone. So I'm wearing like multiple sweaters, but this is like my favorite. I call it my Christmas jumper. And of course, Christmas has started here in London. Anyway, I don't know about the rest of you in the rest of the world, but like there's like Christmas trees and Santas and elves and mince pies. Although I don't think anywhere else other than the UK has mince pies everywhere now. So it's officially Christmas as far as I'm concerned. So I'm wearing my Christmas jumper. I'm glad you appreciate it. Is there an easy way, other than asking, to know which job level it's at? So I think I do have a video about this on the YouTube channel as well. I have a video for almost everything on we have a video for almost everything, don't we, Evgeny? But so yeah, there is possibly a simple way, which is by looking at job title. So shortcut for you, if they're following the traditional nomenclature of Amazon job titles, a something manager is an L5, a senior something manager is an L6, and a senior manager something is an L7. And then a director usually has director as part of the job title. So just for simplicity, a marketing manager would be an L5, a senior marketing manager would be an L6, and a senior manager marketing would be an L7. Lots and lots of job descriptions or job titles these days, I've noticed, because I do lots of job description reviews for people, aren't actually using that nomenclature. So the next thing I go to, ironically, from what we've just discussed a second ago, is the number of years of experience that they're asking for. European job descriptions are unlikely to have that information in it for the reasons we've just described. Lots of the job descriptions that I find in the US and in other territories still have those years of experience in them. So generally, rule of thumb, if they're looking for like 3+ years, 4+ years, I tend to assume it's an L5. If they're looking for somewhere between kind of 6 and 8 years experience, I assume it's an L6. And then if they're looking for things like 10 to 15 years experience, then I assume it's an L7. But that's a very broad brush kind of guesstimate piece and is nowhere near as accurate as the use of the nomenclature. And if you don't have either of those things, then all you can do is ask the recruiter and see if they'll tell you. Quite often they don't, which is very difficult when it comes to then trying to look at the market rates for compensation. It's quite unhelpful if you don't know the job level, but c'est la vie. It's not the easiest thing to establish. Okay,
Cool.
cool.
Excellent. Next one. Um, there's a lot from James Z, by the way. So I
Hey,
guess
look, that's why we're here. You know, get all your
I know.
questions out now, or
I know.
sign up to the course and use the bot.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. What's the minimum time for promotion to next level at Amazon? For example, from an L5 to an L6. There isn't a minimum time for promotion. I mean, you again, there isn't a company wide. There are some teams and some markets, some geographies where there will be minimum promotion times, but as it's not unified, also there are no guaranteed promotion times for any of the role. There is a unified process by which Amazon will consider someone for promotion. That process does not have any time bound limits attached to it. And any conversations around, is this person being promoted too early, or is there a particular blocker because that person hasn't been enrolled for too long? They are specifically they're country specific, they're team specific. Maybe Amazon has invented something right now that I'm not aware of, but during the time that I spent, there was absolutely nothing of the sort. Important thing is, for level and consideration of level, if anyone says something to you along the lines of, here's an L5 offer, take it, and in no time, fast track, you're going to get to L6 or whatever, that has no basis in how Amazon operates, and no one will ever be able to give you any such promise officially. So the level at which you join, it might take you 2 years, 3 years. It really depends on how you do in your role, and it depends on a little bit on how lucky you are as well. Anything you'd add, Gigi?
Nope, that's it. James has got a lot of questions. Let's pull another one of James's questions up. There we go. Is it possible for you to interview for an L5, but they give you an L6? It is possible, but it's improbable. It doesn't happen very often. Up leveling does happen, uh, but it's pretty rare. Generally, because you've already scoped a role as a leader and you've scoped it to a certain level, which obviously has budget implications, etc., etc. And therefore, if you find someone who is you think is stronger than the role that you've scoped for, you have to have more difficult, more challenging, or a broader range of work for them to do. And if you had that, then you'd have originally scoped the role at that level. So, yes, up leveling can happen, but it is pretty rare because it comes with all sorts of complexities. Do you want to pick another one then, Evgeny?
So Alu is Lucas, by the way. Just wanted to
Ah,
let you know, because you
mm.
might be still wondering. Right. So
Yeah, I
there's another one
wouldn't
from.
sleep at night. I'd be lying in bed going, soft. What could it mean?
There you go. See, Lucas, we did a good job here. Okay, so next one. What would Amazon evaluate technical skills during an interview? For example, it asks for SQL and advanced Excel skills in the job description. Would they ask during the interview? Right. The answer is they might, but maybe they won't. So I'll tell you a story about me interviewing for a role where one of the preferred requirements was indeed SQL and advanced Excel, and I came with none of those, and I had to pick them up and learn those at Amazon. So No evaluations were there, but for example, for some finance jobs or for some data science, data analytics, or business analytics jobs where these skills are more front and center to what you're going to be doing, they might ask you to pull together a simple SQL query or to do a little VLOOKUP table or something like that. So it really depends on the team and the role. Anything you'd add, Gigi?
No, nothing to add. Okay. Um, should we just pick this one last question? We didn't do our little halfway commercial break.
No, we'll just
No,
need to verbalize it.
we'll live without that one. Okay. All right. So last one from James. And do you know what, James? You've been a champion, an
I agree.
absolute champion in this session, asking loads of questions. So we really appreciate that. Thank you. We'll cover off your final question. How long is the freeze period if you fail an Amazon interview? Is the freeze across job, family, department, title? Such a good question, James.
Hmm.
And actually, it's a little bit loosey goosey, or at least it was when we were there. It's probably worth following up and seeing if we can get anything up to date. But the freeze period, as you're describing it, actually can range from 6 months to 12 months to 2 years, depending on the team. They get to choose what their freeze period is. Some teams will, and by the way, it's called a not inclined, no recycle is the outcome that you get, and then you get this moratorium that you're calling freeze. Some teams will interpret a not inclined, no recycle to mean that the moratorium exists, but in their particular team, and that you're free to apply to different teams with different roles. Other teams will say the moratorium applies to their entire organization. It is very, or at least it was, very open to interpretation. So I would strongly suggest to anyone, if your recruiter tells you that you are a not inclined, no recycle, if they use that language, or if they say that you can't apply again, first of all, find out how long can you not apply again for, and then secondly, confirm with them whether that is intended to be for the entirety of Amazon, just for a part of Amazon, just for that particular team. Try and get as much clarity from your recruiter before you hang up the phone if you're talking to them, or before you end the email exchange, as to the specifics of what they're calling their freeze period, because it is not universal, and you'll find all sorts of things on the web that are contradictory, because generally what's on the web is individuals' experiences, and therefore you see a lot of different individual experiences where people claim to be the font of all knowledge because they've had this one interview experience with Amazon, when the reality is somebody else has had a completely different one. So the best thing you can do is ask for absolute clarification from your recruiter. Okay, so at that, um,
So we'll just talk about the freebie.
yes, let's just kind of talk about the freebie. So let's just pop the banner on. There we go. Do you want to do it?
Yeah.
Shoot.
So, folks, um, we have designed an amazing freebie for you guys, which is an entire mini course on how to answer questions for customer obsession leadership principle. And it's a complete freebie, no strings attached. To get that freebie, this is where you need to go. So this is the URL. I guess
Yeah, you got it right. Well done.
yeah, got it right. Yeah. That's the one. So so you go there, you scroll down, and it says kickstart your in preparation for free. Get that course, take it, and you're going to learn how to answer questions on customer obsession. You're going to have a fully deconstructed mock interview there, and we'll also talk to you about other resources that we have. So just go grab that freebie and kickstart your Amazon interview preparation.
Cool. So on that note, we are now done for today. We will be back next week, same time, same place. So for those of you who have interviews coming up, we wish you the very, very best of luck. And then for Luca, congratulations. We hope to see more of you come back and give us that good news. good luck. We hope you all have a good week, and maybe we'll see you next week.
See you next week, folks.
Ciao.
Bye.
Bye.